There was an interesting question, probably you missed it, on between, there's the difference between trends among the younger population and the older population.
Yeah.
Is it similar?
That was the third question.
Yeah.
Is there a different trend for the youth as opposed to the adults with respect to the truck-related offense? That was a third question.
Well, as it relates to the north, certainly we see the young population being extremely vulnerable to the organized crime group trying to gain market share.
That is definitely increasing.
Yes, numbers. Absolutely. In the youth population, I would agree. In the adult population, as Superintendent Malone iterated, with the large money, huge investment in the north, more employment as well, or more availability, organized crime will come there and they'll try to increase their market share.
Mm-hmm. What about the waiting list for the province truck treatment programs established in accordance with the Section 720, Bracket 20 in the criminal code? What? You give me some insight.
That's not really something I could comment on, Senator.
Well, that's
Chief Sullivan, you're probably the one to answer that one.
I have it in the different categories.
we do have a drug court here in Ottawa, and it is effective, but as you can imagine, it's quite a lengthy process, and it's an involved process that accompanies with it all the issues that come with addiction. And so there's a huge amount of time required for the reporting and the checking on and the compliance issues and reappearance in court. So we're awaiting the final evaluation as well. That's going to be, I understand, hopefully by the end of the year that'll come out with that. But we certainly see it as valuable. As far as drug treatment, I know my chief is quite vocal, but I also happen to be a member of the Dave Smith Youth Treatment Board, and I can tell you that that's passionately why we're going after residential treatment facilities here in our city. It's a recognition that, and you've heard this before, that people either have to go to the United States or it just isn't here in order for us to do that in the level without any kind of a major waiting list. And so that is a significant issue in access to the treatment centers, but for courts, again, we don't have high numbers in use in the drug treatment courts. It's been out for a few years, but we are also, it is working. We are seeing some successes, but in anything, it has all the issues that are associated with addiction and reoccurrence that go with that as well.
Does it mean then the lack of facilities being not being in the north, then the offenders would have to be brought down south to go to the
I can't speak to the north, but we do, as you know, we have a person that works with our service who does quite a bit of work with the Aboriginal communities, not just here in Ottawa, but up north and across Canada, as a matter of fact.
Area.
Yes. Ms. Logue. And what I can tell you is there is drugs that are coming from Ottawa that are finding their way up north. You are seeing drugs come from our area. And as spoken to, we have a lot of movement of drugs between Ottawa, Toronto, Montreal, and as well as up north coming through here. The other thing with organized crime, as you're all well aware, recent takedown of the Hells Angels in Quebec, and what is the impact on organized crime in our area. And we're having those discussions and looking at that, and a large portion of that, as spoken to by the RCMP, will be the money associated with drugs and all that goes with that. So we constantly have to be looking at where those impacts come. And the other thing, again, when you're doing organized crime investigations, these are lengthy investigations. And so who is supplying in a certain area today, dependent upon certain things, could change. But I can tell you, yes, there are drugs here in Ottawa making their way up north, absolutely.
And I understand that there is a few numbers of Inuit already in Ottawa.
We have one of the largest populations of Inuit people outside of the north, here in Ottawa. A lot of people aren't aware of that.
Are they in the treatment? Are they, most of those people in the treatment? If they are, is there, are you seeing any result?
What I can tell you is we're working closely with a lot of the Aboriginal health centers here in Ottawa, in particular Wabano. And as you're well aware, they have some rather fantastic plans coming up.
Yes.
In order to address that, we also work with the Inuit Children's Center as well. And so we do, at a local level, work very closely with our youth serving agency, our health serving agencies, particularly with our Aboriginal and Inuit communities.
Thank you.
Merci, Senator. Senator Baker.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This, first of all...
Disclosure.
Yes, I'm going to mention
I thought that one caught your
I'm going to mention that. $1.7 million by Superintendent Malone is rather interesting. And it leads to my first question. And I want to congratulate you, first of all, for your presentations and the work that you do. It's quite remarkable. But this bill is going to negatively or positively, no matter how you depending on how you look at it, on both of you. because you've already explained that a part of your budget is dedicated not just to investigation, but to trials. Now you know. I mean, you've sat down, obviously, and said, what's going to happen now is nobody's going to plead guilty on those minimum sentences. I mean, the vast majority of people are now going to plead not guilty. And you're all going to be stuck providing the $1.7 million for disclosure, Superintendent Malone, because it won't just be the initial disclosure. You're going to have to get your CD-ROMs working. And you're going to have a whole whack. So, and then you're going to have to appear before court. The pre-trial arguments. Then the trial. And you may have to go out to B.C. because the charges may be laid there. You may have. So this is a massive intrusion on your budgets. I mean, haven't you sat down? You didn't mention that. Have you done up any numbers as to what's going to be required the day after this is instituted?
If I can just make one clarification, Senator Baker, with regards to the 1.7, that was 1.7 million pieces of communication that were intercepted.
Cost about $1.3 million, I bet.
Well, it costs a significant amount of money for that particular
We
file.
got a figure from one of the RCMP officers who appeared before this committee earlier.
It's probably Superintendent Oban that
Yes, it
provided
was.
it on College Day, yes.
Yeah.
And that's exactly
Yes.
the investigation I was referring to.
Yes.
With regards to having sat down and actually looked at numbers as to what impact that this would have on us, I'm not aware of anybody who in our organization that has done that. I mean, we operate with the tools that we're given, and at that point in time, I mean, we'll do what we have to do in order to enforce the laws of the land. And disclosure has become, with the Stinchcombe decision a number of years ago, that has had wide ramifications throughout the policing community in Canada, because it is, I mean, we're getting into terabytes of information on files, and you can just imagine that investigations that go on for 3 or 4 years, wire intercepts and all that, video surveillance, everything. It's a huge, huge undertaking, and it is a drain on resources.
It sure is.
Baker, Chairman, just as a point of information or possible, and I know you know so much about this stuff that we all learn a bit from you too each night, but disclosure, I'm not just sure what, maybe you could put it in its perception. Because you're talking about it, I just thought it would be better.
I should ask him the question, though, Chair.
What is it, and how does it work?
Initial disclosure at plea. The person must know what they're being charged with and what the basic evidence is. Then there's the unsealing of the packets. Do you know what I'm talking about?
Yes,
Of course you do.
Yeah.
And these are the sworn informations to obtain. And that includes the affiant, police officer, one of these, and their sub-affiants. But the law says that the affiant and the sub-affiant may be called to give evidence on the opening of the sealed packet. And so these officers then have to appear before court to justify a 500-page sworn information to obtain a warrant. Now, so this, with people pleading not guilty, then all of these packets are going to have to be opened. All of the disclosure is going to have to be made. All of the witnesses have to appear, whereas right now...
To the defense counsel.
Yes, to the defense counsel.
Yeah.
Because, yes, now, but here's the point. So that is a huge drain on your resources. I can't see why you have not been able to sit down and to do up the figures on the numbers of people that you're going to have to now prosecute. And you have to do it within a reasonable period of time. But let me ask you the question I was going to ask you about the disclosure. I mean, haven't you made some efforts with the Crown Attorney to sit down with them and say, look, you know, what they need, the defense counsel need, the officer's notes, continuation report, Crown Attorney's case report, the basic things that for the offense,